Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 886 of the Juicebox Podcast. Today I'll be speaking with Paul. He is the father of a young child with type 1 diabetes. Paul is an executive chef. His child has been on Omnipod 5, done clinical trials, and we talk about all of that, plus what it's like to be married and raising a child with type 1 diabetes. While you're listening, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. Are you a U.S. resident who has type 1 or a U.S. resident who is the caregiver of someone with type 1? Oh, if you are, please go to t1dexchange.org/juicebox and complete the survey. Completing the survey helps type 1 diabetes research to move forward. It supports the Juicebox Podcast, and it's just a nice thing to do. Plus, it doesn't take very much time, and you can do it from wherever you're sitting right now. t1dexchange.org/juicebox. This show is sponsored today by the glucagon that my daughter carries, Gvoke HypoPen. Find out more at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. The podcast is also sponsored by Dexcom, makers of the Dexcom G6 and G7 continuous glucose monitoring systems. You can learn more about the G6 and the G7 and get started at dexcom.com/juicebox. See your blood sugar, the number, the speed, and the direction all in one place on your smartphone or on your Dexcom receiver. Dexcom.com/juicebox. The podcast is also sponsored today by the Contour Next Gen blood glucose meter. Check out the Contour Next Gen, the Contour Next One, and their entire line of blood glucose meters at contournext.com/juicebox. Get yourself an easy to handle, easy to use, and incredibly accurate meter. Get a Contour.
Interested in sharing our story and our journey so far. It's been interesting. I've kind of got to participate in some trials and, on the Omnipod 5 now. We were on the Tandem for then 2-year-old. So it's been a whirlwind and an up and down. And I think we have some interesting stuff to share, and love to hear some of your feedback and what you think of the situation, and also talk about the kind of the strain and pressure that being a caregiver puts on marriage, and being in clinical trials, and being a professional corporate executive chef, and my son eats 5 things, and it's a lot to talk about and a lot to share. So hopefully it'll be some good content for other listeners, other parents and caregivers, and other T1Ds.
Oh, I'm certain it will be. Why don't we start off by you introducing yourself any way that you want to be known?
Sure. My name is Paul, 46 years old. I have a 3-year-old type 1 diabetic son named Justin, married to my wife, Margarita, and we've been married since 2007. And Justin was diagnosed at 18 months, and he is now a little over 3. He's 3 in May.
Oh, wow. Okay. So Justin's had diabetes about as long as he didn't have it.
We just passed the halfway mark, so he has now been living with diabetes longer than without.
Gotcha. And you've been married, 16 years?
Yes, since July of 2007.
Wow. Today is my 26th anniversary.
Wow, congratulations. That's you don't hear that so much nowadays.
Do you not? I don't know.
You don't. I don't.
Paul, I don't talk to anybody. I don't know. I don't hear anything from anyone. I make this podcast and I sleep. So, thank you then very much. I appreciate it. I just, she hasn't opened them yet, but my wife has told me this story probably a dozen times since I've known her, and we've known each other, my gosh, since probably well, we knew each other longer than we were dating. And so I don't know. We've been married for 26 years. I think I knew her when she was 16 and 17. Like, just like I knew, like, you know, to say like she walked past me and I recognized her.
Sure.
And I think I started bugging her when she was 19. So anyway, she's, I don't know, 48 now. And she's told me a dozen times in her life about getting these diamond stud earrings as a child. I don't know if it was wrapped around her Catholicism or if it was a gift or something, but she, I guess she took them out at some point, and I don't know why people do things like this, but left them by the sink or the windowsill near a sink or something.
And adios.
They're just gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know why it never occurred to me over the years. I've always felt so bad for that little girl. You know what I mean? Like, I always wished I could have like swept in and been like, here's 2 more earrings. It's fine. Don't tell anybody, you know? So I got my wife a pair of nice diamond stud earrings for our anniversary today. They're downstairs on a table. And I had,
better late than never, Scott.
Well, hey, I wasn't there the day it happened. I just don't know over the years. Well, I do know, Paul. Over the years, in the beginning, I was like, I can't afford this. You know?
Sure.
And then today I was like, I could, you know, earlier this week, I said to Arden, I was like, come with me and help me pick out earrings for Mom. So we did that and acted fancy in a jewelry store for a little while and then got right out of there because we didn't feel too fancy. But,
yep.
But it's nice to know that 26 years feels like a long time. I have to admit, it's different, like, as everything is. What you expect and what you picture and what you imagine when you're younger is never what happens when you're older. And I don't mean like successes and failures and things like that. I think just what the union means is different than what you think it is when you're like 25, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree. And it also, it's also different being husband and wife and then being, you know, mommy and daddy as well. That's a change that no one really describes to you very well.
Yeah. No, my son's going through a tough time right now, like transitioning out of college. And he's sort of, I don't know, he's being kind of private about it, I guess. And I don't know, Paul, my only job in the world feels like taking care of people. And then, you know, and I do that verbally. And so when that doesn't happen, then I get angry. I'm the least anxious person in the world. And right now today, I'm as like twisted in a knot as I've been, I don't know, since Arden was diagnosed.
Wow.
Yeah. Just because I can't help the way I want to help, or the way I want to help is not helping or whatever. I don't know. But those are not things that you have to deal with if you don't have kids. You know
True.
what I mean?
Yeah. You can't, you know, look back and tell like a 19-year-old you that one day you're going to be faced with, you know, X, Y, and Z. It doesn't relate, and you don't comprehend at that age.
Right.
But you know, just it's part of adulting and parenting, I guess.
Everything's on the job training.
100%.
Yeah.
And with diabetes as well. It's all real world experience. You can only get led from do not die information from your endo, you know, for so long before you have to start figuring stuff out yourself and acting in the moment. So I guess it pertains to a lot of different parts of life.
Oh, I think so. Is there something about a saying about building the plane while you're flying it?
Yeah, I don't know what it is though, but I understand the analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't explain it well, but I think it explains itself. It's like,
yeah. So some days feels like we're, you know, you're flying while you're building the plane, and you're bailing out water as the plane floods as well.
Right. So isn't it exactly like that? It's because I'm imagining 3 years ago, you and your lovely wife are living did you say you're an executive chef?
Yeah, I'm an executive chef. I work for a corporate dining company. So we do a lot of dining for, you know, like corporate dining for Uber and Twitter and, you know, large Bay Area companies with thousands of employees. So we do on-site food service for some of the larger tech and .com companies.
And that's a job you really enjoy, I imagine. I don't think that's something you can do if you don't like it for some reason.
You know, there's, I guess in the culinary world, you can there's kind of two sides to it. One, you can work in a public restaurant. Like I'm sure you have a downtown area that has tons of restaurants where you can, work as a line cook or even a chef, and your days are, like when I was in my early 20s, 15, 16-hour days, 6, 7 days a week, Thanksgiving, Christmas, all that. You miss all the birthdays, all the holidays. You're in there from open to close every day.
Mm-hmm.
And the pay is substandard.
Oh.
When I got married in 2007, I was working as a sous chef at a popular Mediterranean family style restaurant. And I would kiss Margarita on the cheek when I left for work in the morning at like 6:30 when she was asleep. And I would get home from work at 1:30 in the morning and kiss her on the cheek while she was asleep in bed. So I quickly explored my options to find out, before this marriage starts, how can I help it succeed by spending more time? So I ventured into the world of corporate dining. So the world of corporate dining is Monday through Friday. I get in about 6. I leave about 2:30 every day.
Nice.
I'm off on all the bank holidays, regular holidays, and the pay is 2-3 threefold of what it would be in, I guess, what you would say a regular restaurant.
And see, Paul, that's my point. You got everything together, and then life hoisted you up to 40,000 feet and said, "Hey, your kid has diabetes. Figure it out before we crash." Great.
Pretty much. Yeah. In a nutshell. Yes.
Thanks,
absolutely.
Well, what was it like when Justin was diagnosed?
Shocking is I guess what stands out the most. But the story leading up to it is, you've probably heard a lot of times with the thirst and the excessive bedwetting and daycare. He was in daycare and I said, he's drinking a whole lot of water. And I said, oh, it's okay. So a week later, I was like, he's really drinking a lot of water, like, 10 times as much as the other kids. And so we message his pediatrician. He's like, it's fine, whatever. Don't worry about it. And message him again. I said, he's wetting the bed every night, and his attitude, he's just been really, really cranky. And we go to take a bath and he's just crying and crying. And so it finally took him to go into DKA for us to, I guess, take him in. He was super lethargic and his breathing was, concerning. So we took him to a respiratory clinic and we thought, oh, maybe COVID, whatever it could be. They did a bunch of work at the respiratory clinic. And they couldn't really find anything. They were waiting for the blood work to come back. And they said, well, while we have him here, let's take some urine. So they took urine. They couldn't really give us a diagnosis, so they sent us over to the pediatric emergency. And while he was kind of going through the routine of being admitted there, the doctor called me from the respiratory clinic and said that they found sugar in his urine and your son has type 1 diabetes. You're going to be at the hospital for 3 or 4 days.
I'm sorry, the respiratory clinic didn't recognize the Kussmaul respirations?
No.
Well, geez. Respiratory clinic, okay.
Yep.
It's okay.
Uh-huh.
So you got, wow. So you tried to find out what was going on and nobody was able to help you.
Yeah. We reached out to our primary care and, even some Google or some internet search results, but I guess that's, if I have any gripe about the situation, is that, and I don't know, I'm not a doctor. I didn't go to medical school, but it seems like if you're emailing your primary care, and they don't recognize that excessive thirst and bedwet, like, just the classic symptoms, maybe something needs to change there, or there needs to be more education, but seems like all the classic signs. But
well, don't worry. Once you educate those people, they'll move on and get different jobs, and then there'll be a whole new group of people to educate, and it'll just keep happening.
Oh, sweet.
Over
yeah.
and over and over again. My goodness. Yeah. Well, were you in the hospital for that many days?
Yeah. Well, the thing was, when he was admitted, it was only one parent in the
I see.
hospital at a time because of COVID until he got admitted to PICU, so the pediatric emergency wing. And they tried to stop me from going in, is the way I'll put it.
It didn't work out for them?
I'm on like 6'7", 250. So yeah, I mean, I didn't forcefully make my way in, but I was in there with him and my wife.
Paul, you were 6 feet 7 inches tall?
Yeah, and about 250.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So
that's
not telling me no. In so many words. I'm going in with my son.
That's crazy. You come from a tall family?
Yeah, my dad was 6'2". My mom was average, but yeah, there's some height down the lineage.
Wow. So after the diagnosis, what do you think struck you first? Because you have a pretty coherent list of things you want to talk about. So I'm wondering what got to you first.
The first thing was, I guess, my understanding of how much I didn't know about diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
So because he was in DKA, they were monitoring for brain swelling, which didn't happen. So, which we're grateful for. But I remember asking the doctor, okay, like, when is he cured, or when does he not have it anymore so we can go home? And our whole world kind of changed over the next 24 hours as we started learning more information. So I just remember feeling like helpless, like I didn't know what to do or how to help. Mm-hmm. And then not having the knowledge or information to help.
Yeah.
So helpless was the first kind of real emotion that I had. And then came the grief. But I will say that, we spent 3 days in the hospital. Probably didn't sleep very much at all. And then before being discharged, had to go to a 3-hour kind of crash course in diabetes management from the on-site diabetes educators, mm-hmm. which we retained 0% of the information from.
Yeah, it's hard to listen and
impossible.
Yeah, and remember, it's very interesting that on the first day that you were just under the impression that there was a medical problem that would be cleared up somehow.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
Yep. 100%.
So while they're dumping all that information into you, you were just sitting there grieving, confused?
Yeah. I mean, Justin was 18 months old. He was crying the entire time, and he's just got poked and prodded, and he hadn't slept, and it was just really, really emotionally draining. And then to hear some of the stuff that the diabetes educators were sharing, as they share more and more information, you kind of in the moment are realizing how much everyone's life is going to change. And it's a lot to take in,
right?
After what, we've just learned in all the previous 72 hours.
How old are you, Paul?
46.
46. So you waited to have children too a little bit.
We did. We went down the road of, we can either be young and not afford it, or be a little bit older and afford it. So
you try to do everything right, and
yeah,
still
exactly,
yeah. Still a life game for you. And you sound like a pretty emotionally mature person.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we've only been talking for 15 minutes. You might be an idiot, but for now, I think you sound like a pretty emotionally mature person.
Yeah, we'll circle back at the end and let me know what you think.
Well, yeah. Also, I've heard crazy stories about people who work in restaurants that I'm not going to ask you about because we have serious conversations to have here. But
they're all true.
Yeah, right. It's just a big orgy, isn't it, Paul?
100%. Yeah, everything you hear is generally true.
Yeah. Okay. And in the chain restaurants, the food's all prepared. They just sous vide it, right? Like it's frozen, and then they just do. A lot of places do that. They're not really cooking for you. Gvoke HypoPen has no visible needle. and is a premixed autoinjector of glucagon for treatment of very low blood sugar in adults and kids with diabetes ages 2 and above. Find out more. Go to gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. Gvoke shouldn't be used in patients with insulinoma or pheochromocytoma. Visit gvokeglucagon.com/risk. The Dexcom G6 and the brand new Dexcom G7 continuous glucose monitoring systems are legit amazing. You wear them on your body and they speak to a receiver that Dexcom will provide or to your smartphone. That's right, your Android or iPhone can also see that information. Imagine being able to flick your phone open just casually to see that your blood sugar is rising or falling or super stable. Just with a little flick of your wrist, there you are on your phone. Hey, my blood sugar is 123. It's been an hour since I ate. I'm pretty happy with this. Doesn't look like it's falling. Doesn't look like it's rising. Nice and comfortable. Plus, you're going to set up limits where you want to be advised of your blood sugar. Arden's are set up at 70 for her low and 120 for her high. You could set it wherever you want. But when it gets to that threshold, it'll be like beep, beep. Hey, blood sugar is 120. You want to make it 150? You can do that. It's completely user definable. How about up to 10 people can follow your CGM? So your mother, your brother, your mom, your dad, a friend, colleague, the school nurse, anybody can follow a blood sugar and get those same alerts. And they can change the alerts to be like, look, I don't want to hear it 120, but I want to know when it's this. It's completely customizable. You're getting your blood sugars in real time on your phone. It's fantastic. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Learn about how insulin impacts you, how different carbs impact you. Can you just imagine being able to see, like, when I eat grapes, this happens, but when I eat an apple, that happens, or when I eat macaroni and cheese, this happens, or how crazy is this? I have French fries and like an hour later, my blood sugar goes up. Why is that? People, Dexcom.com/juicebox. Get started today with the G6 or the G7. So you're going to get yourself a CGM, but you also need a BGM, a blood glucose meter. We all get one given to us, right? Whether you're the parent of a child, or you have type 1 yourself, or you have type 2, a doctor's always handing you a meter. Is the meter accurate? Oh, well, you don't know about that. You just take the one that you're given. But the truth is, some meters are more accurate than others. And the Contour Next Gen is amazing. ContourNext.com/juicebox. In fact, the entire line of Contour meters is really just exceptional. And you can check them out at my link. You can buy them at that same link. If you want, maybe you could grab them at Amazon or Walgreens. There's a whole bunch of different places there you can get them from. They may actually be cheaper in cash than you're paying right now for a substandard meter through your insurance. Or maybe your insurance will cover it, or whatever. You'll figure it out. ContourNext.com/juicebox. You're carrying a meter. You're testing your blood sugar. Why not make sure that test is accurate? And the meter's got a bright light for nighttime viewing and second chance test strips. ContourNext.com/juicebox. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Links in the show notes. Links at juiceboxpodcast.com.
I guess you look at it as, if you're getting a full rack of ribs with a baked potato and some vegetables and a side salad and a dinner roll and a Coke for $12, no one's probably actually taken the time to prepare that food. It's probably coming from a factory,
right?
Frozen or, in bags, and they're just reheating and serving.
I knew it, Paul. It all made sense. I've never worked there.
On the opposite side, if you went to a local place, little barbecue joint that smokes their own brisket and does all their own sides, and you're like, wow, why is brisket $27 a pound?
Yeah, that's because somebody actually made it for you.
Yep, because somebody woke up at midnight and smoked that thing for 16 hours.
I worked in a diner for like a week when I was, I don't remember, really young. And it was just such a hustle, like clearing tables and washing dishes and everything. And then I quit for two reasons. One, I was I made coleslaw in a trash can. Not a trash
Oh,
can.
jeez.
It was not also used for trash, but not the
Oh, okay.
point, right? Like it was basically like dump all these in, then reach in with your arms and turn it over until it's coleslaw. That
Yeah.
flipped me out. And they would feed you, but then charge you full price for the food. So by the end of the week, you really didn't make very much money. And I didn't realize, I was like a kid. They were like, "Do you want dinner?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, great. This is wonderful. Thank you." And then I was like, "I'm not doing this." So I left.
Well, at least you spent a week.
I stayed and I was like, maybe I can tough this out, but it was gruel. It was really, I mean, as a kid, but it was like grueling work. So it just never stopped. And the kitchen was always somewhere between like viciously on fire and somewhere humid near the dishes. And just none of it was pleasant. But so you get out of the hospital. I mean, I have all the empathy in the world for you. Arden was 2 years old when she was diagnosed.
Right.
But none of the technology existed then. So did they start you with a CGM?
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, we got sent home with the CGM. And then we were on MDI for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. And then we started the Omnipod DASH.
Okay. But MDI. And were you pushing for a pump or were they trying to give you one?
We pushed for we advocated as much as we could for every piece of technology and equipment that would preserve our son's health.
Yeah. How did you find out about it so quickly?
We left when we left the hospital, one of the attending physicians told us about Brave Buddies. Are you familiar with Brave Buddies?
I don't know, and I'm looking it up now.
So Brave Buddies it's pretty much an online form for type 1 diabetics. People will give away supplies or ask for help. But in lack of better term, it's like a Facebook page, but it's all through email through a server. So, if you're on a vacation in Orlando and you forgot your T-Slim infusion set, you can post a message up there and it gets emailed out to everybody, and someone in the community will have one, or an extra sensor or whatnot.
Oh, that's cool.
So it was a way to connect with other families who had type 1 diabetic children or were type 1 diabetic. So it was kind of offered as an emotional support, kind of reach out to other people. And I started reading the posts and people talking about all kinds of pumps. So looked into it.
Nice. And did you find that, I mean, I'm imagining you found it helpful, but how was it managing? Well, I guess the first question should be, did Justin have a honeymoon?
Yes. To what extent or degree is I don't know. It's a lot of it is a blur. But looking back, yeah, I mean, he was definitely dumping out some insulin overnight. Before we got on the pump, there's a lot of overnight lows followed by too much juice and overnight highs, and the pump really helped regulate that and got us some sleep, which was nice.
Does Margarita work?
She does.
She does. So she's a full-time job, and so do you.
Correct.
So baby was in daycare. So then what do you do with him? I mean, now, does somebody stop working or?
No. So when he was diagnosed, he was at a small family daycare. When he came back home, we tried to reach out to the daycare and speak to the owner about what caring for him would look like. So we got as much literature as we could. We translated, the hospital translated all of the, I guess, the binder that they send you home with into Spanish. And so we went to kind of sit down and meet with them and kind of go over protocols and procedures, which we, looking back at the time, really didn't have a big clue to what we were doing. But the kind of the willingness and the communication just really wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID hit, so we just pulled him completely out of daycare and cared for him at home.
Okay.
I never, neither of us ever lost our jobs. Both of our jobs paid us to kind of work from home, which as a chef kind of seems ridiculous. But I was creating cooking classes and sous videing and Thanksgiving turkeys and prime ribs and just filming them. And we were posting it for a bunch of people to see it at work who could log in. And
well, that's Paul. So your company had you create food and share it in videos so that the employees might continue to eat well during COVID?
Correct.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah, it was a way to, even though we're not physically there serving you food, we can still, share recipes, show techniques, and,
Right. That's great.
Still, yeah, it was fun. So we were both home for a while. Margarita eventually went back to work. And then, we were faced with the decision of, we were both going to need to go back to work. What are we going to do for daycare options? So we found, and this is, I can't say how grateful I am for this, but we found a daycare that was like 20 minutes away from our house that is run by a T1D mom. Her daughter was diagnosed the same age as Justin. Her daughter is now 21.
Wow.
She did it before all the technology in New York as a single parent with 3 other kids.
Yeah, she might know what she's doing.
Yeah. She knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
So he started there. He's currently still there. He's on summer vacation now, but yeah.
Wow. That's very lucky, and it's just fortunate. We're so great. There's not even words to express how grateful one person can be to have another person in their life that understands and gets it, especially when they're caring for your child. No kidding. And I've stalked Margarita. She has a cool job. You don't have to say what
she does.
Yeah, but that's pretty cool. So
yeah, it is.
All right. So this hasn't been long for you. This is, 18 months to a year and a half. Are you back at work cooking for people again?
Yeah. We're back.
Okay. And so this is all kind of chugging along now. And it seems like you're in a place where you're just looking for normal. I mean, because COVID was it was strange, wasn't it? It was somehow relaxing and anxiety ridden together.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
I
don't know how that happened, but it's everybody's life was like the way you imagine it in a book. You're like, this must be how the Kardashians live. They just get up.
Exactly.
They get up at 10 o'clock. They make an egg.
Yeah, it's life right there, right? Yeah, wake up at 10, make an egg. Yeah, lay by the pool.
Yeah, go for a walk. Yeah. Have a spritz. It's so, you know what I mean? Then you start thinking about, what are we going to do for lunch? Screw lunch. We'll make a nice dinner. It doesn't even matter. Nothing matters. You want to vacuum? Yeah, forget it. Yeah, all good, right? And then the other part of it is I really think I'm going to get sick and die any second now.
Yes,
and that's,
correct.
In your head. And when am I going to go back to work? And how is this all going to go? And everybody's life is on hold. Very weird. Just a very strange. We are still seeing the impacts of how it retarded people's progress. Students, there's a girl on here recently talked about meeting a guy, and they started dating, and they started to become intimate, and then couldn't see each other anymore. And then we're suddenly standing on a sidewalk talking to each other from 6 feet apart. And just all the weird ways that the flow of life has been, impeded at that time. So you're probably, I'm going to guess, mostly lucky for you because you got to deal with the diagnosis a little bit without being pressured about going to work, etc.
Correct. Yeah, there wasn't kind of that oh shit moment.
Yeah.
We had some time to process.
Right, and then you get, I am going to call it lucky. Lucky meeting this person who runs this daycare is I mean, it's nice because can you imagine if that person didn't exist and now you get thrust back into the world, the both of you,
No.
where's Justin right now?
I can't. It's hard to imagine. It's going to be even more difficult when we do the next transition into kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
We're pretty lucky right now that, that someone else has his follow data and knows what to do with the information.
Yeah, you have 2 more years to tighten up your understanding of things too, and all that other stuff, which is great. But you talked about in your note about a marital strain. Did that happen slowly? Was it very quick? Did one person try to take take control, or how did it fall?
No, it's like most other things in our marriage, it's equal participation. No one's taking ownership over anything, including diabetes management. It's always kind of been a group decision.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many nuances and one-offs and decisions to make. And sometimes you just don't know what the right thing to do is. And that, we started with the DASH and then started a 6-month study, and he went on the Tandem. And then Friday we started the Omnipod 5. So we've had some transitions, and a lot of times with transitioning from one device to another, there's some kinks to work out.
Yeah, no, it's not easy. Just settings are different, and the way the device acts, some algorithms to not having an algorithm. It's a lot. So when you say strain, do you just mean a loss of normalcy, or do you mean actual like butting heads?
Butting heads is a strong term, but we've always been pretty free and easy in our relationship and our marriage. But there's never been an obstacle, like diabetes or diabetes management. And it really puts a test and a strain on not really the bond, but you being tired all the time doesn't help a lot in the decision-making process.
For sure.
But if he's a growing toddler, so if he's going to bed and he's getting this huge growth hormone spike and he's shooting up to 250 and we don't think the pump's doing enough, and do we bolus? Do we not bolus? And I go, well, I'm going to bolus. Well, don't bolus because it might auto bolus. So just a lot of back and forth and a lot of, disagreement sometimes on what to do for treatment, or, he's at 76 trending down. Do we give a cracker? Do we give juice? A lot of it is just stressing and,
it's a lot of
sometimes just not knowing what to do and thinking the other person has the answer. And, you just kind of go back and forth until you're exhausted with it.
For me, I find it either falls in you really believe in what you're saying and the other person disagrees, and that causes an issue, or you're sitting there thinking, I need you to know because I don't know. And they're thinking, I need you to know because I don't know. Right.
It's definitely a lot of the, when somebody asks the question like, oh, he's trending high, should we give a correction? And then you're expecting the person to say, yeah, probably a quarter unit should be good. And the other person goes, I don't know. And then you look back at them and they go, I don't know. And you go, okay, well, I guess we'll just stare at our Dexcom for another half hour and see what happens.
Let's ask Justin what he thinks.
Yeah, he's asleep. He doesn't care.
Hey, buddy, just grab this pinky if you want me to. Yeah. No, I know. It's ridiculous. It's a lot of stress, and not for nothing. You're in a specific situation. Meaning you waited till you were older, and it sounds like for the most part your life was going pretty well. So not a ton of speed bumps, and then you get a I don't know. It's not just a speed bump, right? It's a mountain, and you're and there's no input from anybody about how to do it. It's terrible. It I don't know. I feel like I can't remember it anymore.
Yeah.
And yet I feel like I understand exactly what you're talking about, because we had all of those situations come up. Like, come on, just tell me what to do. What do you want to do? I don't know. And the other thing is, my wife is such a bright girl. You know what I mean? And I count on her so much. Like, she's one of the few people like I really trust with her opinion, you know?
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you turn to her and I'm like, I need your opinion. She's like, I don't have an opinion.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. Margarita has always been the, more studious of the two, and I guess, more street smarts, for lack of a better term. But together, it's very cohesive and it works extremely well together. Where she's more analytical and I'm more, whatever, maybe quarter unit, whatever, it's fine. But together, that it kind of meshes together well in everything that we do in life, not just diabetes.
Yeah. Nah, I get it. So, tell me a little bit about this. You participated in a study already?
Yeah. So we participated, first of all, shout out to Dr. Bruce Buckingham at Stanford. Been doing diabetes research and education for 45, 50 years now. He's a retired pediatric endo. So we were in his study for FDA approval of the T-Slim in Justin's age group.
Okay.
6 months we were on the tandem, and it was good. The control IQ worked really well. It helped with overnights. We probably went through, months at a time where we slept through the night, which is amazing. Dr. Buckingham is the kind of person where he's taken Zoom calls at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night after Justin is asleep to review settings and data. And we had an issue the other night with the Omnipod 5, and even though we're no longer in the study, he helped us transition over. I had a Zoom call with him at like 1:30 in the morning.
Wow.
So he's just really committed, and it was a really, really amazing experience. We're very, very grateful to have had access to the tandem T-Slim for his age group.
Yeah.
I will say it's been since it's Wednesday now. He's been on the Omnipod 5 since Friday. I do not miss the tubes or fanny pack that he would have to wear with it at all.
Yeah. I hear that from a
but
lot
the
of people.
Control was fantastic.
Right.
I think for the last 90 days, it was like 86% in range.
Wow.
So I can't complain for a 3-year-old.
No, of course. What was the study for? To get
approval
for lower ages.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay. Well, that's great news, actually. Do you know?
Yeah.
Do you know did they ever tell you when they thought the study would be done?
The study is done.
It is done. So they have enough data to move forward.
Right.
Oh, that's cool. That's very good. Okay. Hold on a second. You wrote here, this is interesting. You just wrote poop and bathing and how it affects blood sugars.
Oh, yeah.
So, bathing, I think I get, but I want you to, start with bathing. What do you notice with your son?
What do we know? So, by the way, poop and bathing, it's not all one. It's two separate occasions. He's not pooping in the bath.
Yeah, I imagine.
So bathing, if we bathe him, so generally he'll have dinner 5:30, 6 o'clock. Then he has a bath about 7:30. He's in bed by 8:15. So if we give him a bath, he will generally, say he's a 150, takes a bath. He may go up to 190 and then back down to like 130 after the bath.
Mm-hmm.
And we've, it's been explained to us, and the water's hot and insulin and surface of the skin and all that. But sometimes it doesn't happen, and sometimes it does happen. And sometimes the finger sticks match and sometimes they don't match. So
does it ever,
I guess I'm just interested to hear other people's experiences as well.
Yeah. Does it ever seem like he's like playing in the bathtub, like excited? Could it be adrenaline?
It could be. He's hot and cold when it comes to a bath. Some days he wants to take a bath for a half hour, and some days you drag him in there kicking and screaming to take a bath.
Sounds like everybody I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, okay. Well, I mean, listen, there are people who tell you that the hot water makes their blood sugar go up. There's people that tell you that the hot water makes their blood sugar go down.
Sure.
I always think of it as maybe you get in the shower and relax and your blood sugar
Sure.
goes down, right? Or maybe you get in the shower and, I don't know, think about the world and life and it upsets you. And, you know, like, I don't know. Like, I do know that Jenny will talk specifically about like your blood, like how insulin works in your body, and the temperature that your body's at. But I mean, it seems crazy to me to think that in 10 minutes, something could change so drastically with the temperature of your body that your blood sugar goes like firing one way or the other. Like, it always seems to me like it's got to be something else. And then there's times that Arden will take a shower at the end of the day and she'll get lower. And there are times that she takes a shower at the end of the day and her blood sugar goes up. And so is the shower really part of the equation? You know what I mean? Or does it? Or
that's the mystery, right?
Yeah, right. Or is it just, you know, one day she ate a larger meal that she didn't bolus well for, got in the shower, and her blood sugar went up. And one day she did a great job with her blood sugar, and she got in the shower and relaxed, and her blood sugar went down. Like, I don't know. Like, I really don't. I'm not.
Yeah, and we worked with integrated diabetes, and we've met with Jenny a couple times, and it's, you know, everyone's experience is different. I mean, I think it's just one of those, you know, like you said, what Jenny talked about with the hot water. And even when we were in the study, we were talking to the endocrinologist and said, yeah, you know, if you've recently bolused and, you know, insulin is still close to the surface of the skin, it may have this effect and that effect. But at the end of the day, when, you know, he takes a bath, he's obviously, when he was on the Tandem, he's disconnected from the pump, so he's not getting any basal. So we will see, regardless if he spikes or one way or the other during or after the bath, we do know that about a half hour later, he'll start to trend up because of missing basal. So we'll have to bolus for, you know, half hour of basal.
No, that obviously is the first thing I should have said that I didn't. But yeah, you were on a tube pump and you were disconnecting.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. Here's what I'll tell you. This diabetes isn't easy.
True story, Scott. True story. You should
write that down.
You should have a show about it. Yeah, you should have a show about it.
I think the key is, I mean, I guess the key is to see what's going on, learn from it, try to anticipate it next time, and stay a little bit ahead of it.
Right.
I do really wish that, I don't know. There's part of me that thinks the podcast should be 20 minutes long, one episode, and it should say, hey, type 1 diabetes. It's difficult. Learn how to use insulin. Stay flexible. You'll be all right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because I think that applies to almost like at the beginning of the conversation where you were talking about, you know, the impact of one thing. And you're like, I think you said like, well, it really is like that for everything in life. And I think that's right for diabetes too. I think that in the end, it's about using insulin well. It's about timing an amount and staying flexible enough that you don't get stuck in an idea to the point where you say, I have to know what is this that's happening? You know, instead just saying, look, it's going to happen and here's how I fix it if it goes one way and here's how I fix it if it goes another way. And until you can come up with a real answer, you know?
Yeah. And Margarita is very, you know, cynical in that way. She'll, the way my brain works is, you know, I mean, I work in a kitchen, so my movements and my actions in the kitchen are very methodical. And when I do something, I expect a certain result. You know, if you've braised beef 100 times and it comes out wrong once, I'm going to overanalyze the situation and find out what happened. Mm-hmm. With diabetes, that doesn't work. You just need to correct and move on.
Yeah. Hey, just get another piece of meat and go again.
Yeah. Well, what if you don't have any meat? You know? So yeah, it's been a little bit more difficult for me to, you know, accept some of the, you know, high highs or low lows, and just, you know, correct and move on. I always find myself, you know, wondering and anticipating, not so much so I can figure out, you know, what went wrong, but kind of just to be better prepared for the next time.
Yeah. Well, listen, you do have to do that as well. You know, you have to take in the data and look at and step back and look at it. Do you ever come up with answers? Do you ever think, oh, I know what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think I do, until until something happens that disproves it. So
Yeah.
then we start from scratch again. But yeah, I mean, it's you know, it's a learning experience, and I do think that knowledge is power, and you know, just kind of recounting what happened and trying to do better the next time.
How is the diagnosis and the ensuing time? How has it been for you personally? Can you disconnect Justin from the conversation and talk about yourself?
Rarely.
Yeah. I mean, do you ever get to think about how you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I've processed it. We're talking to a therapist now that we meet with, but it's more for family therapy. But you know, just as myself, it's hard to disconnect. You know, I'm still sad, that's for sure.
Yeah,
still heartbreaking. But you know, I need to be strong for him and for my family. So a lot of times, you know, however I'm feeling gets, you know, pushed aside, which is okay. I'm not a very selfish or self-centered person. I've always had the giving and caretaker mentality in me, and I do it, you know, for a living through food, feeding other people at work. So kind of second nature in that aspect.
Yeah, I was going to guess that.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, the family therapy sounds like a good idea.
It is, and a lot of it is, you know, centered around how to get Justin to do things. I never in my adult life had heard the term three-nager before.
Wait a minute.
But guess what, Scott? Yo, you don't know about three-nagers, do you?
Justin difficult? Are you telling me the kid's hard to work with?
Yeah, a little bit rough around the edges. Yeah, so aside from the terrible twos, apparently there's also a three-nager. So it's just a kind of an extension. His twos weren't that bad, but the threes are a lot of no's, obviously. But it's just everything's a challenge, whether it's brushing your teeth or taking a bath or going to bed or getting dressed. It's all what we've come down to find out is having it be his choice. So we worked with the therapist on, say, you know, like bath time. You know, bath time was always a struggle. So she's like, okay, well, you know, make it his choice. Let him choose, you know, what kind of toys he wants to play with, blow bubbles, play music, have a dance party. And so, you know, here we are. He's in the living room crying, and we're dancing, listening to Blippi in the bathroom. So
46 years old, 6'7", 250 pounds. Let's not forget all that.
Imagine.
Yeah, I can.
I'll send you a video if you want.
No, I don't want to see it.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, you know, they're nice like 3 times in the first 25 years.
Oh, is that 3? So I got 2 more to look forward to.
Well, you know, listen, around 6, 7, 8, that can be fun right there.
Yeah.
You know, 4 years old, really cool. Boys prior to puberty are fun. 11, 10, 11.
And don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I always like to use a Sour Patch analogy, you know, sour on the outside, sweet on the inside. He's an angel. When he's in a great mood and he's having fun, is the greatest child on the planet Earth. But then the complete opposite is true as well.
Does any of this correlate with his blood sugars?
No. I mean, obviously, if he's, you know,
really high. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a double-edged sword. I mean, we've put in a lot of work to make sure that, you know, he's in a good amount of time in range. He rarely ever, you know, goes really high, or very rarely goes really low. So, you know, he's used to being in range. So when he's high, it's, you know, for a longer period of time, it's noticeable.
Yeah.
But he could be at 100 straight, take a bath, and, you know, you think the world's going to end.
Right. And I do not want to bum you out, and I'm sure that this isn't the case, but have you tested thyroid function?
Yeah, we tested thyroid and celiac recently.
Okay, good. Do you remember the TSH for the thyroid?
I do not.
No, take a look at it. If it's over 2, but they told you it's in range, go back to them.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. What else do we have here? Paul, you're a delight. I didn't realize this was going to be so much fun. I never know how the guys are going to go.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I love talking to guys about it, but sometimes people are like they're still kind of closed off. They're like classically men, if that makes sense. And
I understand.
Yeah, you're more forward facing, which is nice. But your wife, so your wife's in the podcast Facebook group, but you're not.
I am not. I don't care to partake in modern social media.
I don't either, actually, Paul.
Yeah. You wouldn't know it.
It's part of my job. No, I like the input from people,
sure.
And I like seeing people help each other. All the good stuff about it, I love.
Yeah.
But I'm 50, and
exactly.
Not like if you put me on a desert island, and you were like, listen, you can have social media or I don't know, a television. We're only leaving one of them. I'd be like, oh, just leave me the TV. I'll be.
Yeah, I mean, it has its purposes, but I'm not interested.
But does she come to you with things she's learned online?
Oh, of course, of course.
And you find that helpful?
I do. I find it helpful. Sometimes the stories on there are heartbreaking, and I don't know if I want to read heartbreaking stories every single day. But there's also successes on there. So a couple people that we've connected with and had play dates that we've met through the group and whatnot. So I do see there is value to it. But with I think with anything in social media, it's always more negativity than positivity. So I choose to stay away.
Well, I think my Facebook group is more positive than negative, but other than that place, I completely agree with you. And,
of course. I meant yours excluded.
Of course. And so I get people's notes privately. Some of them are difficult.
Sure.
I'm looking at one sitting here now, like that I have to answer today. And it's just a person who wants to come on the podcast. And they said, like, I'd like to be a guest. My daughter has type 1 and Down syndrome. She's 12 and has complex health conditions. And then, I'm reading on, like trying to take in what this is. I'm already at the point where I'm like, okay, she said she dropped her A1C. I'm like, great. Like, she loves the podcast. She wants to come on and talk about what's going on. And I'm like, all right, I got it, right? Like, I want to say yes to this, but I'm going to keep reading the note because it just seems, I don't know. It would seem wrong not to just read the entire note. And at the end, she says that she just had a stroke and she's using a feeding tube now. And you read that and you're like, okay, like that's so hard just to hear, but imagine living through it.
Yeah, I mean, it's right. Yeah. I hear things like that. My heart goes out to her and her family.
Right.
It makes what I'm doing seem almost easy in a way. And so I guess it's all about perspective.
Yeah, and so that's exactly it. Like, obviously, I want to speak to this person. Why? Not to hear a terrible story about her child's health, but because it's very possible that this woman has a perspective on life that the rest of us don't.
100%.
And I want to hear that. But then hearing the story intermingled in it's difficult. It's, you have to tell the story so that people understand where the perspective comes from. You can't just have her on and say, look, trust me, this lady's life is harder than yours. Like, let's listen to what she has to say now. It just doesn't work that way. So you lay out the story. So now I've read the email and I'm like, oh, I'm also a real person, Paul.
Yep.
And so, not that it matters, but this has not been the easiest time of my life right now. And so, like, I'm dealing with my own personal stuff. I have family too, people in my life are sick. There are people in my life who are, everything, all the things you can think of. I love somebody that has all those things too, or I have them. And then you get this note and you're like, wow. So I understand you not wanting to see it. And I don't think, I don't know if it sounds harsh, but if I didn't have this podcast, I don't know if I'd want to see this email either, So.
Yeah. I mean, Yeah, and I will listen to the episode and I will take something away from it. But I don't want to be exposed to something every day.
Yeah, it's too much. Well, I think the one here, I'm going to talk myself out of listeners here if I'm not careful. But I do think the one thing that this modern life allows is it gives you access to so many people's stories and so much access to news and things like that, that I don't know that our brains are meant to know what's happening in, the trucker strike in Canada and a shooting in Kentucky and, a warlord in some place killing a group of people. And I don't think we're supposed to consider all that stuff.
Seems like a little bit much.
Yeah. Because especially when you have no agency over it, like you talked earlier, one of the first things that hit you when your son was diagnosed is a feeling of helplessness. Mm-hmm. So what stops me from hearing about people being treated poorly in, Australia, and now I, on some level, feel helpless about that. It's just, I don't want to live in the middle of the woods where I don't know what's going on anywhere, but we're exposing ourselves to so much stuff, and everything feels like it carries the same weight for some reason. My social media this week, I'm not going to lie. My social media this week, what is this guy's name? Give me a second. I'm going to figure something out. It's completely ridiculous. I could just say, okay. I am in a point now where I've been made to feel bad for the Cubs catcher. He's had a tough couple of weeks, Paul. Because
weeks, huh?
Yeah. Wilson Contreras, it's had a tough couple of weeks. Everybody kept saying he was going to get traded, and it was stressful, and then he didn't get traded. It's been hard on him. And I've read 3 blurbs about how hard it has been for him. And don't get me wrong. I'm not walking around my house, punching holes in the wall going, it's so unfair how Wilson Contreras is being treated.
Oh, not him. Poor guy.
This guy, I don't know. What is he? He probably only makes, I should look just to make the story funnier. Hold on a second.
Yeah, I wonder how much he makes.
Yeah, let's find out for a second. Well, listen, see, here it is. He's a young guy. Well, wait, he's 30 years old? Well, he isn't making enough money.
I think the league minimum is $350,000.
Yeah. I can't believe I'm about to say this. He's only making $500,000 a year. So the guy is being treated a little poorly.
Poor guy.
He's a good catcher. But here he is, the guy making $500,000 a year. He plays baseball. And my social media set me up to feel badly about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, now, did I take the bait? I got to be honest with you. A little bit. It's in me somewhere because I'm aware of it. When I reached for an idea, it popped into my mind. I'm not walking around I'm not getting ready to overthrow government so that Wilson gets paid correctly and ends up where he belongs and all. But it's still it's in the back of your head. It's like a pile of dirty laundry. If everybody's woe is a sock, you know what I mean? Eventually it goes up to the ceiling and it's overwhelming. I'm I can't do all this laundry. I don't know how to help Wilson. You know what I mean? My son just graduated from college. He's having trouble transitioning. I don't know how to help him. My daughter's getting ready to go away to college. I'm assuming she's, putting on a bright face and she's excited for a number of reasons. I also imagine she's nervous for a bunch of reasons. At this point, it's my 26th wedding anniversary. I just left my wife's gift on the table downstairs because I couldn't find 5 seconds to talk to her yet today. So, you know what I mean? It's, I don't know. I don't think it's important for me to know everything that's happening in the world.
True story.
That's all. Anyway, went a long way for that. But now we know about poor Wilson.
We do. The struggle is real.
Yeah. By the way, here, let me tell you what Yahoo Sports says.
Oh, okay.
The Cubs' handling of Wilson, is it Contreras? At deadline is shameful. Can you imagine? It's shameful. I almost want to click on this link to find out why it's shameful.
Well, if you click on it, then that means that you're interested in it, so you'll get more in your feed now. So
I know, and I know I've done it. I've already done it to myself. but I mean, honestly, shameful. Is that not a pretty harsh word? I used the term butting heads earlier, and you were like, "That's too harsh."
Yeah, it's too aggressive, Scott. Calm down.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. And I'm not making fun of athletes. He's a person too. And I'm sure it was difficult for him. Actually, like, let me take that back. Let me take the whole thing back. I'm sure it's been difficult for Wilson Contreras to not know where he's going to be when he wakes up on Wednesday morning. I bet you that is not pleasant. And I don't think it matters how much money you make.
I mean, the worst case scenario, he has to get on a first class flight somewhere.
It's going to be bad. Like, yeah, the guy that, I don't know, usually carries his bag probably won't be there. So, but I'm just saying that I don't need to know about it. That's all.
Agreed.
But there are some things that you learn that are helpful. So I don't know where the line is. I don't know if we're going to mature and, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if like one more generation removed will know how to ignore the parts of all this that aren't important. Mm-hmm. Or if this is just going to be a thing that people aren't built for, and it weighs heavy on us for a long time. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's just too much information everywhere.
Yeah.
And you know, you're almost in a position where you would have to pick and choose what you want to care about.
Right. Yeah, no, I even like politics is such a great example. When you're younger,
no one cares.
You don't care
when you're younger.
Right,
yeah, no.
Right. When you're younger, you don't care at all. Then you hit an age where you do care. And then you hit an age where you go, listen, I don't know how many times I'm going to hear the same story. This isn't changing. Like the nature of people hasn't changed in my lifetime. I'm going to ignore this again. You go through seasons for certain. All right. So what's your favorite thing to make?
Well, we're in California, so I have the luxury of using what's seasonal. So there's not really one particular favorite thing to make. It's just working with what's seasonal and it looks and tastes the best. So we're kind of spoiled where, you know, it's pretty good climate here in the Bay Area in California. So we have hundreds of farms within 150 miles of the kitchen. So it's
get like an eclectic mix of things that you can work with.
We do. I recently started a smoker program. So we feature something smoked every week, whether it's brisket or tri-tip or St. Louis rib. So we talked work into buying a $5,000 Yoder smoker. So I get to play with that at work.
Is that pellets or is that wood?
No, wood fired.
Wood fired. How hard is that to figure out how to learn how to do?
How hard is it?
Like how long did it take you to figure out how to get the fire burning right?
Oh, I don't know, 3 years.
There you go.
Yeah. It's a process like anything, you know. You have to learn it and understand it, and you think you're doing everything right, but then you have the wrong kind of wood because the wood's wet. So then you got to find better wood, and you finally get the wood, but then the beef you got's not that great, and so on and so on. So it's like anything in life, you know. You have your trials and errors.
I only have a pellet grill, which I bought during COVID because I was like, what am I going to do?
Because boredom.
Yes. I'm like, I'll learn how to do this. And I guess I use it for some like basic ideas, but it's amazing how well it works. Like from like, you know, like a pork butt just for pulled pork. Amazing. Not difficult. Usually I grab a couple of steaks and smoke them and then just slice them up as I eat them. Like I don't even I don't even make the steak and then just bring it inside and eat it. Like I'll have a little bit of it. I'm like, that was good. And then I put it away and then I'll yank it out every day and maybe just take a couple of slices off it, throw a little, like, I don't know, pink salt over top of it and eat it with something else. It's amazing once you understand how important it's just time and temperature.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's really all it is. And the only difference, that my preference is to use an offset smoker. So the pellet smoker, you just don't get as much of a pronounced smoke flavor. It's fairly light.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely
with
true.
With the wood burning offset smoker, you can get that deep smoky taste. I've been trying a lot to imitate Texas barbecue. So just kosher salt and 16 mesh black pepper on your protein, and then it's all about time and temperature.
Yeah. really is. Well, Paul, I didn't have somebody with deep pockets that I could schnooker into buying me a smoker, so I had to buy it myself. Like,
True story. Yeah, I'm sorry.
no, don't be sorry. I mean, I'm proud of how you've accomplished this. I can't believe you got your boss to buy anything. That seems like a heavy lift, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working on this purchase for quite a while, and the general manager who was leaving kind of pushed it through before he left, and so
I see. He's like, well, this won't fall on me because I'll be gone. So sure, take your smoker.
Yeah, kind of.
I would take that. That sounds right. All right. Yeah. So I'm going to let you go, but I want to check first if we've talked about everything you want to talk about, and then I want to ask you one other thing.
I think that the only obstacle, kind of new thing in our life is starting the Omnipod 5, and seems like for anyone else who's just started, I'd just like to share a little bit of feedback if
please.
That's okay.
No, please.
So we started Friday. Today is Wednesday. The first pod failed. The first pod failed Saturday night. We thought that it was the algorithm learning, but by the time he hit 300, we pulled off the pod, gave him a manual injection, and then started a new second pod. Mm-hmm. He did throw up twice, so we were in close contact with his endo, but we decided to manage it at home. He had 2.9 were his ketones via blood. Hour later, they were 1.9, and by the next morning, they were 0.6. So, I mean, we were able to manage it at home, but the algorithm is better on the second pod. It is learning. I think I will say that with any automated insulin delivery system, I haven't found, and this is our third different from pump from Dash to Tandem to T-Slim to Omnipod 5, is that we haven't found any of them that can handle a hormone rise in a 3-year-old. So there's been, from going to 86, 89% in range to, hitting the lower 70s now because he's high for 4 or 5 hours overnight as our algorithm is, learning. So to other people or parents out there that may be experiencing kind of the same thing, the algorithm did better on the second pod, and we're hoping to see improvements as it goes, as we change the next pod.
Yeah. Your episode will come out long after this happens, but sure. I have 3 episodes that I just recorded with a CDE, and we put together a list of things to talk about. I got the list from the people in the Facebook page, and then the list was given to Omnipod, and they went over it and made great sense of it for me. And then we went back and I had the conversation with the CD. It's going to come out in 3 parts. But I think the takeaway for Omnipod 5 for me after hearing the conversation was settings are very important. Entering in with basal and bolus that's near 50-50 a day is very important when you're starting the pod on the first one.
The first pod was like 30-70 basal to bolus, and then the second pod day 1 was like 53-47, and then yesterday was like 49-51. So
and what I meant was that your initial settings that you put into the pod is where the pod begins to learn, but then it stops taking your settings into account very quickly. But if you're a person who, for instance, is under basaling over bolusing, or over basaling under bolusing, or something like that, that's going to throw off the amount of time it takes the algorithm to learn things. I think the other thing I learned was that you still have to manage insulin well. Like, I think people have an expectation like that this thing's automated. I think they think this about all the automated systems, but it's automated. It'll just do it. And that's still not the case. You have to pre-bolus your meals. You have to, you have to get your carbs counted pretty right. You have to understand if there's going to be a fat rise 90 minutes from now, that the algorithm doesn't know that,
Right.
that kind of stuff. And you have to understand that it's not super aggressive. So when you see a rise that comes out of nowhere, it's going to treat it like it would treat anything else. And then if suddenly, hormones is a great example. Hormones are hitting like food. So imagine if you ate and didn't tell it you ate. The same thing happens when the hormones come.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, 100%.
When he's an avid milk drinker, so if we pre-bolus, 15, 20 minutes, because we know when he drinks 6 ounces of milk, he's probably going to go up 100, 110 points, even with a pre-bolus. Even a strong, like almost a 2-unit pre-bolus for, 30 carbs, and 11 of that is milk.
Right.
It's really hard to avoid that spike. So, unless you split the milk. But then when he goes to sleep, you see that kind of similar, like plus 11, plus 12, as he falls into that deep sleep, as his hormones are kicking in.
Yeah. Wait till what happened here last night happens to you. It's somebody grabbed soft pretzels yesterday, and they're just sitting in the house, and it must have been like 11 o'clock or so, and I said to Arden, "Hey, your blood sugar's drifting," and I was like, "And there's something about the angle of this line that tells me it's not stopping," and I know you're only 100 now, but I think this is going to go 100, 95, 90. Like, I think in a half an hour, you're going to be 65. Like, I just don't think, I don't think the algorithm's going to catch it. Like, it's what I'm seeing right now. And she's like, oh, yeah. So she, of course, waits too long to have like a small snack. And then, she grabs some stability, but she grabs it at like 70 instead of, 90, where it could have been,
so she just dips low.
Yeah, had she just eaten it 20 minutes sooner, she would have grabbed stability at 90 and maybe gotten to 70. Instead, she held at 70 and was going to get lower again. So she starts getting lower, and I hear her say, "I got it." And I was like, okay. She eats an entire soft pretzel. Boluses for it, like, pretty aggressively. Like, she didn't do bad. And like an hour later, like, I went to bed. I was like, I'm good. And Kelly was still up working, and she's like, "Hey, I need you to wake up." She's like, "I've been trying to help Arden, but like, it's not working." And Arden's blood sugar went to like 250 off of that soft pretzel.
Yeah, pretzels impact just in the same way. They hit hard and fast.
Right. So I had her change some settings, and went to sleep. And when I woke up this morning, she was 90. So it all worked out. But it's tough. And just imagine if it was something else: adrenaline, pain, hormones, like these kinds of things. I think what people need to understand is that right now, 2022, you can get Tandem Control IQ, you can get Omnipod 5, you can get the Medtronic device, you can get, do-it-yourself loop. And the three retail devices are going to be less aggressive, I guess, because you can make the loop be more aggressive, right? Because it's more user definable. You can tell it to start correcting at a lower number. You can tell it to auto bolus 10%, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60% of what it thinks. You have a little more control over those settings. Whereas in the other ones, they work the way they work, and they work amazing. They are, for the most part, going to keep you from getting low. And, they're going to do a pretty good job with meals, as long as you understand meals. And as long as you understand when the algorithm just, I don't know what the word is, but it's beyond its ability at that point.
Yeah, you can't handle it.
Yeah, you're going to have to jump in and do something. Yeah. And, once you learn that, I think you're good. I desperately don't want people to think that these things are just like, oh, you put it on and everything's like fine. Your blood sugar will be 93 the whole time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's by no means is it a set it and forget it kind of thing. It's
right.
It's a drastic improvement from 10 years ago, but
wow.
I mean, it still needs to be managed. And I think since we've started the Omnipod 5 on Friday, I've probably been up till 1 o'clock in the morning, just trying to see how aggressive it is and how much insulin it's giving at what rate, because I want to understand it and know what it's doing. So if I go to make a decision and override to bolus, that I understand what it's doing and how it's working.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there is a learning curve to it. I mean, well, the algorithm has its learning curve while it's learning. I'm trying to learn as well, so I can manage as best I can too.
And from what I hear from people, weeks from now, it'll be better than it is today for you.
Yeah, I think the 5-week mark is the kind of buzz that I'm hearing
from people. Yeah. I've heard all kinds of different stuff, and so even what you're learning might change. But listen, The truth is, and people, you're going to hear me say this a million times over the next year, for the vast majority of people using insulin, you put an Omnipod 5 on them and their life is going to just improve.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I also believe that I did it for the first couple of days that Arden used Omnipod 5. I was like, well, this is, I started comparing it to Loop, and then I just realized, I was like, they're not the same thing.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah. So I let go of that very quickly. They're not the same thing. They shouldn't be compared to each other. If you want that, if you're looking for that, drill down tight control like that, then you need to look at that do-it-yourself product. And if not, then, this is what these things do. And I imagine they'll get better over time.
Of course.
All of them. So anyway,
right.
I think I think they're amazing. I think if you can afford them, you should try them. That's for sure.
Agreed.
All right, Paul, I kept you too long, so I can't ask you about the restaurant orgies and the massive drinking and drugs that I'm assuming you've seen through your 20s and 30s working in restaurants. But
well, invite me back for an After Dark episode. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, if you had diabetes, you'd be right there.
Damn it.
See where you're getting let down by not having diabetes? You cannot come back on. And my son said to me recently, she's like, are you always going to just interview people with type 1? I was like, people with type 1 have regular lives too. It's plenty interesting. Don't worry.
Don't worry.
Yeah. Don't worry. It is. Anyway. All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you doing this.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for everything that you do. We're appreciative. And I didn't mention in the beginning that about a week after diagnosis, we found your podcast. And I think 2 weeks after that, we started with integrated diabetes, and it really changed our kind of our philosophy and our way of managing diabetes. So thank you very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so happy you found it. A huge thank you to one of today's sponsors, Gvoke Glucagon. Find out more about Gvoke HypoPen at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. You spell that GVOKEGLUCAGON.com/juicebox. I also want to thank Dexcom and remind you to go to dexcom.com/juicebox. Start with that G6 or G7 sensor. And of course, contournext.com/juicebox. Get yourself an accurate meter that's easy to hold, easy to use, and has second chance test strips. Contour Next Gen at contournext.com/juicebox. I'll just remind you also to check out the private Facebook group, Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes on Facebook. Although there are people in there with so many different kinds of diabetes, I should probably change the name. It's for everybody. Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes on Facebook. If you're new to the show, please subscribe or follow in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get audio. And if you've been listening for a long time, please share the show with someone who you think might also be interested. Oh, and if you're really loving it, leave a 5-star rating and a beautiful review wherever you listen. Sharing the show is how it grows. So whether it's through a review, a personal conversation where you say, hey, I think you should check this out, tell your doctor about it, anything to help the podcast grow, I very much appreciate it. And of course, supporting the sponsors is why the show is free and plentiful, and also why the Facebook group is also free and well managed. You guys are making that happen with your really kind support. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll be back very soon with another.